every year.
There's a total disconnect now between the ruling group and the masses.
I hate psychology.
Clear out.
They're the same worm-like characters.
Analysts.
Fuck you with your stupid argument.
They should not bother us.
Democracy. All of this just works.
Vote for the generations who are coming.
Fully dynamic game engine.
A millennial video essayist.
For support, strength,
Constant craving.
and identity.
I haven't yearned. They are a disease of our time.
Clear them out. You're voting for what your grandfather and father fought for.
I sit and yearn.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Longhouse. It's been a little while. We didn't stream last week, but we're back in force, or that's to say, Ludwig Path is back in force. He's going to be sort of in the driver's seat of this episode for a bit, because I've had a bit of a busy week, and so luckily we have him here to pick up the slack, as it were. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm more interested in how you're doing, to be honest. You've gone through some things in the last week. Yeah.
Yes, I did. I had had the baby walrus. A small girl was born late last week, and so it's been a new sort of way of life, I guess. But it's going quite well, to be honest. It's she's not that difficult this far. I mean, it's just, what do babies do? They shit, they sleep, and they eat. And luckily we're blessed with a baby that really doesn't cry unless it's not one of those three things. So you just deal with one of those and she stops crying and goes back to sleep. So
it's procedure as usual. Sorry, I had a problem with my monitor. I'll just 10 seconds so you can just entertain the audience a little bit.
No worries. So that's the deal, Nordan, on why we're streaming a bit late. There were some, baby and family related things that came up this Thursday that pushed back things. Hopefully it won't be, a stayer. Hopefully it's just a one-time thing. Let's see here. There's something else I want to talk about just for fun, but it depends whether or not Ludwig Path is ready with his monitor. If he's ready.
Oh, yeah, it's better now. I think I can just do it to two monitors. So yeah, did you have some small topic? No, I think we could just get into it because it might take a long time. I don't know how much energy we have this late in the day.
That's you can
an issue with this.
You start with your stuff, and if we have any, it's not much. It's just like a 5-minute thing.
Yeah. Okay. So. I mean, the plan was really to do it last week, or I think that would have been more topical. The news cycle moves very quickly, and people want content instantly, right? So if we had done the show last week, we could have done like the debate analysis. That would have been like 2 days afterward, and it would have been a lot more fresh. Now it seems like we are at a point.
I tried to tell my wife, think about the news cycle, but she didn't want to.
Keep it in a little bit longer. Yeah. It's very important stuff. But I don't know how online you are these days. Maybe you can get a nice break trying to just enjoy being a dad.
I mean, I have tweeted, random stuff, and every now and then I'll get 5 minutes on Twitter to just retweet a meme or something. But it's actually been very nice to, for once in quite a while, open Twitter and be like, wait, what's this thing everyone's tweeting about? And having to like go back and read up on it, basically do research. So yeah,
that is nice. So I mean, my experience now is that we, as the American election is intensifying, you're seeing increased partisanship, as I would have expected, but I did not expect things to get as intense as they have. I mean, you could see kind of the factioning start to get much clearer, and I've had sort of a hard time trying to write stuff that's funny because of like the seriousness of the issue and the degree to which the let's just say like the Maga core has concentrated itself around its mission to the point where I can't really point out if I think Maga stuff is funny anymore because it's just kind of dead serious.
Sure.
Yeah, this seems to be a thing where a lot of these big influencers that people know from various conservative and right-wing spheres have now kind of coalesced.
Well,
And
I want
there's
to comment for a moment here. I mean, maybe I'm sort of actually, yeah, I'm jumping ahead. We're going to get into the debate, but I kind of see it in Trump as well. And one of my biggest sort of thoughts after the debate is, while I do still find him quite funny, I feel like he's almost taking himself too seriously.
Yeah, I mean that's a problem. There is, two things that are attractive with, I guess, or at least that has attracted me to the right wing and the right wing style media, and one of them is the edge, and the other one is analysis.
Yeah.
And now that everybody's jumping on the Trump train, you don't get edge and you don't get analysis anymore. You just get hope.
It's just hysterics and slop.
I'm just going to put a content warning on this, so we're going to start to do this now with these shows. I'll put my conservative content warning on, so there's going to be minimal Russia content in this episode, but there will be like Maga critical content, which I know is like pretty difficult for people these days.
We're just going to make another set of people mad. Yeah,
especially on Twitter now. So now everybody is sort of jumping 100% behind everything that is Maga with zero irony behind it. It's just, okay, we have to do this. And in the process, the creators are going through, they're both shredding their kind of edgy side. They're shredding all the edgy kind of irony bro stuff, and they're also shredding their ability to do any objective analysis whatsoever. So it's just partisan cope all the way. And on Twitter right now, there's no difference between Bronze Age pervert and cat turd. That's just how I'm seeing things now. Like
Okay.
Bronze Age pervert, like cat turd, Ian Miles Chong, Oral McIntyre. It's sort of just the same stuff that they're all posting. And the people who have built up any kind of edge are just smoothing it off, and the people who have built up any kind of credibility as sort of neutral, independent third parties are throwing it out the window so they can jump on the next Trump kind of disinfo campaigns. I mean, I could share, just so people aren't confused. If you're not as online as me, I'll just share a couple of things to show you. Let's see here. I'm going to share a screen. Okay, let me know if it's coming through.
There we go.
Here we have a post from my favorite right-wing influencer, Raw Egg Nationalist. And he says, "I can't believe they thought this made him look bad." And here's a photo of JD Vance on a billboard. And it says,
Love it.
"Your body, my choice." And it looks bad, actually. It looks really bad.
It does look bad. Yeah.
I mean, if I was to explain to an alien, okay, what am I supposed to think about this billboard? This is a campaign billboard.
Yeah, it's not like Dark Maga, right?
No, this is a campaign billboard from the Harris Walls campaign. This is an unflattering picture of Senator J.D. Vance, and the quote, it's really there to make him look creepy. And they picked this picture deliberately because it makes him look bad. It's something called the boomer angle. That it's called that because, when the baby boomers are using their cell phones, they're taking a picture like the same way they're scrolling on it. And that means that they're getting their face at a certain angle where their chins look bigger. With JD Vance already has a weight problem and has to use like these various tricks like the millennial beard to cover up his double chin. But you can sort of see it there. You can see the neck beard pushing out. And you have now guys like Raw Egg Nationalist, Bronze Age pervert, these people who have built up a brand that is more or less based on this kind of post-physique culture. In a sense, it's like, if you made an argument against them, it's like, you're brown essentially, or like, I bench more than you, I have a better physique. I'm cooler than you, and it's like a kind of Mean Girls club for
Mhm.
the right wing, where physiognomy and health and all these types of things are very important, except for now, because we have to support our friend JD Vance, who is subscribed to all of these guys on Twitter. So it's really like, let's see if I can get the other link here. They
Here we go.
So it's, I really can't believe anybody thought this man was a bad pick. Well, I mentioned it previously. JD Vance has the lowest approval rating historically of any vice president that has ever been selected ever. Currently, him and Trump seems to be campaigning just on two different campaigns, saying two different things. But because he shows up on CNN here and just kind of he's asked about this Haitian migrant eating cat story, and he basically said, what's your source, Senator? I made it the fuck up. So they think that's cool. Like these people think that it's doing trolling, basically just going on mainstream TV in front of the independent audience and just doing internet trolling is the way to win. And they kind of have to say that this stuff is cool, even though I think for most people it's quite apparent that it isn't. So the bodybuilders have to kowtow to the fat man like it's Dune 1984.
It's that they wanted like both ways. They want to troll online, but they also want to discuss policy, right?
Yes, but as we found out, it's quite difficult to discuss policy, especially if you go on these news networks and just admit that you're making shit up as you go along. So,
yeah, exactly.
But that's kind of where I'm at. Well, we can get more into this kind of cat eating story later as we look at the debate. But that's kind of, if you think about the aftermath of what happened, it's really the thing that stuck with people in the debate is that Trump came with some claim that Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, are eating the dogs of the people who live there. It's been kind of a mainstay, and I've sort of been arguing with people on Twitter where it seems like the consensus in the terminal right-wing spaces is that this was a really good idea to make this stuff up and try to use this to promote the kind of anti-illegal immigration narrative. Almost uncontested, really. You're seeing it more as the people have taken on this sort of bot behavior with this, whether it's posting AI-generated images of cats and geese with Trump running around with them, or they're posting cat snuff on my timeline constantly with shitty video footage from Africa of some guy who was like boiling a cat alive or something, even though it has nothing to do with Springfield, Ohio, but they keep just posting it over and over again. It's been quite headache-inducing. So I think, but yeah, we could get back to that after we take a look at the debate. Do you want to share, or maybe I should share because I have the...
I can share the debate. That's fine. You just tell me what timestamps you want.
You use the link that's in the sheet there. I could post it in the private chat because the timestamps are specifically to that video. And I don't know if you have another YouTube video that might sync differently.
No, I think we're good. Oh yeah, sorry. You wanted that specific video. Okay.
Yes, because the timestamps are set up for that.
Yeah, no worries. Let me try this again. I think we have almost the same one. Yeah, I think we're good. So let me just try to share this again. Here we go. All right.
So, I just wanted to go through a few points. The first one was the expectation that was set up in front of this debate, right? You end up catching yourself being caught in certain, like media echo chambers. And like, I caught I was surprised at Kamala Harris in this debate, but realized later when I was doing research for it that it had a lot to do with the sort of selection bias that is within these conservative media spheres. So, my summary of the what I would consider like the right, the Maga view of Kamala Harris going into this debate is that she is the kind of DEI candidate, the diversity, equity, inclusion. It's been used as a term of endearment, I think, on the left, and as a bit of a pejorative on the right, for sure. Meaning that she is basically there because she's brown and she's a woman, and that's kind of the entire point. She doesn't have any skills, she can't speak, and you could be forgiven in a sense for thinking that because she's been quite passive in her vice presidential role. She's gotten little time on screen. The administration doesn't seem to know what to do with her. Combined with the talking point that's been brought up that she got very few or no votes essentially in the primary, which it's a fair point, but one also has to remember that there's a difference between the primary election and the general election, in that you could probably take unpopular primary candidates that would be popular in general election candidates, considering that the populations are locked in certain numbers for each side. And what appeals to like these concentrated Republican and Democrat audiences do not necessarily appeal to the independents who decide the election.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's something to remember. Other impressions, I guess just to add to the kind of usefulness factor is the nepotism charges, right? Because Kamala Harris was in a relationship with San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown for a while when she was a prosecutor. So they have like these blowjob jokes that she slept her way to the top. There might be some truth to that because she was appointed to certain positions by the mayor of San Francisco while they were in a relationship. They also have the drunk Kamala memes that are running around based on certain clips where she sounds tired, a little bit off, the wine mom, cat lady thing that's been played into. So the thing is that there is actually footage of Kamala Harris debating, because she, as the vice president, there is a vice presidential debate. There will be a vice presidential debate on the 2nd of October with Mike Waltz and J.D. Vance. And we'll probably cover that one as well. But Kamala Harris had a debate against Mike Pence in 2020 during the Corona lockdowns, where they had like the limited audience debate with the plexiglass and everything, and that was a full 90-minute debate that she actually won based on the audience polling by a comfortable sort of 60 to 30 votes, and people were generally impressed with the performance she did. Mike Pence is of course a different type of debater than Donald Trump, but
yeah, Pence was always more standard, sort of old school Republican compared to Trump, right?
Bog standard, kind of old style Republican, but also polished in the way that he debated. So she did not come across as a lightweight in that debate, but I realized that that debate has just been completely memory hold in favor of more of these kind of meme approaches. So I think that it's really the short memory problem. The other expectations is with comparing Trump to Hillary Clinton, and now to comparing Kamala Harris to Hillary Clinton. If you use 2016 as a reference, where a lot of the rules that have been set in place for this debate happened because of the Trump-Hillary debates, where you have the debate where they're basically sitting on like bar stools almost with a live audience that is communicating with them, and they're able to walk back and forth. Trump was able to take advantage of his kind of larger stature in that debate and just simply kind of just walk over Hillary. It's really weird. I wish we had maybe have some footage, but I think people remember it. Is that
I remember those? Yeah, he was like menacingly walking behind her at some point.
Exactly, and sort of using that as a type of intimidation tactic. So now I think because of a lot of trial and error with this debate, the format that they've landed on is being kind of like split screen muted mics essentially to try to compensate for that. There's also I guess other issues with using Hillary Clinton as a template for Kamala Harris, considering that she is a female candidate, she was a similar age, and perhaps similar ideas, but I think Kamala Harris can edge her out in maybe not in just a clear sort of policy or politics expertise, but in being able to leverage being a woman better. When I look at the Hillary Clinton footage, she has that sort of insufferable Karen bob cut.
Yeah.
And the voice that sounds like she's a chain smoker, in a sense. So it's not like a feminine character. It's like this very I want to talk to the manager style stereotype that she brings in. That I think
sort of I made it in the man's world kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. The pantsuits and the HR style woman, which I think it really rubs Americans the wrong way, and also considering her involvement with certain foreign policy things that have given just like a very bad reputation for her with the American audience. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, is she still has the long hair, she's still reasonably slender, and is able to, her voice sounds almost like it has like almost this raspy ASMR type quality as compared to Hillary Clinton. So you could actually play up the feminine.
I don't like it personally, but I could see why, especially other women, would enjoy it, right?
Yeah, and I think at least if you compare it to Hillary Clinton, it's sort of night and day thing with the femininity. So I just wanted to go through a couple of the structural factors there. Let's see that you have the two hosts on the what is it, the CBS, Lindsay Davis, which is it's interesting. She it's been mentioned that she was actually in the same sorority as Kamala Harris, which is the thing that was brought up in after the debate, implying sort of nepotism. There were a lot of conspiracies going around after that, and we could cover that later. I think the interesting, what's the context that's needed here is the fact that they were in the same sorority 13 years apart. So they have met each other IRL, but they did not go to school at the same time. The sorority they went to, the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority on Howard University, this is kind of like if you're like a cool black woman, essentially, that's where you go. I don't know much about the male host. See, David Murr. So maybe you could move the timestamp to the beginning of the debates.
Sure.
And we could just watch the introductory statements, so I could comment some more on the
well, I doubt we were able to sort of just run it all without any commentary.
No, absolutely not. That's why I have the timestamp. So maybe you could just show the introductory clip before they do the handshake, and I could comment some more on it.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Okay, see if you pause it there.
Yep.
I guess the first
doing the right thing here. He's leaning back, sort of. I think that's the way to go, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, this was a discussed thing, whether, how exactly Trump should have approached this, but you notice that these two people, as far as I understand, have never met each other IRL, and Kamala Harris approached him. It's like the
well, you see that I was about to say it. You could spin it the other way and say that she appears more energetic by sort of being not aggressive, but sort of like being more sort of open and going forward to shake his hand, right? But I mean, you're getting into like super deep analysis of like a handshake.
But that's what I would think that this was deliberate. I think to sort of avoid the physical intimidation factor that you had with the Hillary debates, that she, I would imagine that, to me, it seemed like she had done a lot of prep, a lot of focus group stuff. And this would make sense considering that she was a lot less active doing rallies in the 2-week lead up to this debate. So I assume that she had done a lot of prep.
I mean, I would say comparing her debate here, I mean, I know you said the Pence thing, but not having seen that and having seen a lot of other interviews with Kamala, I keep hearing both, like, which is the right way of saying her word, even saying her name. I mean, even she says it wrong sometimes. Anyway, other interviews with her, she was much more coherent in the debates here than she has been in a lot of interviews. Like, she'll just ramble about nothing essentially for like a minute.
Yeah, so that's the impression that a lot of people have in these more free-flowing interviews, that it's more kind of incoherent stuff that they can't really get the meaning behind it. So I think many people were surprised. But of course, again, this is a selection bias thing.
Of course,
because a lot of especially if you are in these kind of what do you call it, like these right-wing content funnels, you'll get
the highlights, of course. But I mean, just to be honest, looking at the actual source interviews as well, I haven't been very impressed with her. I mean, if she was a European politician, I'd probably say that she would do better, because there's a lot more, at least that I'm aware of that gets away with this sort of fussy sort of talk in the way just European politics works, but it doesn't seem to resonate as much in American contexts.
No, yeah, that's a good point. At least for people who are skeptical, they crave decisiveness for sure. So, but yeah, just commenting a bit more on the format and stats here. I mean, the build height of these two wrestlers, of these two contestants. I mean, Trump is set up as 6'3" and Kamala as 5'4", so there's almost like a whole foot between them. It's not very visible here. I think Kamala is wearing high heels, and I suspect that
wearing very high heels. Yeah,
Trump is a bit hunched over. I assume, with age, people get shorter because of spinal compression and various factors. So that whole foot height difference was not entirely visible, but it was something that was that had been taken into consideration by the debate moderators, because as you can see, if you look at the podiums, they are not in the same size. I think that was, I think the commentators mentioned this as well, that Kamala Harris has a smaller podium than Donald Trump. And so when you see them standing next to each other in the split screen, they look like they are the same height, or Kamala is actually taller because she's standing more upright.
Yeah, you can see it here.
As you can see here. So, I mean, it seems like it's just like super petty stuff to comment on, but it's something that matters because it's different from...
I mean, there's people whose jobs are to decide these things, right? So
yeah, exactly. And when I mean, when you're watching, you're thinking about this kind of stuff, and it's the same effect when people were talking about the Hillary Trump debate, that she was very small and he was very large, and that was sort of a thing that stuck into people's heads. But if you're looking at it here, this it's nullified by the format. I mean, the split screen is also a new thing. I'm not sure exactly why this was done. The Biden-Trump debate was not split screen. It was sort of like they'll cut to the person who's talking. I mean, it's interesting with American debates because they have so many varying formats in this way. But anyway, like the way I thought this worked to Kamala Harris's favor is that it felt almost like a kind of, like I was watching a stream, like you have the streamer reaction videos, where on one side you have the content, and on the other side you have like a person who reacts. And that's kind of how I felt with this debate. I haven't heard many people talk about this, but it's a sort of, in a sense, like people watch Trump on stream and they'll just sit and do reaction stuff, right? Like you see with bread tubers and this kind of, when these lefty streamers. And that's kind of what I felt like watching when I was watching this. Like she is watching him go off.
You get like the live Kamala reaction.
Yeah, live Kamala reaction in a sense. And you notice that her face, she was looking at him and he was just looking straight forward. And that's what happens in most of this debate. This is standard Trump. I don't know exactly why this is, but he always looks straight ahead. And that was the case in the primaries. You could see it there without sound. Because now she is talking, but he's not looking at her. He's just sort of staring off into the distance and making various facial expressions. But when he is talking, she is looking in his directions and making kind of various emotes, facial expressions. And that's what I consider. It's like, this is like the live reaction feed, in a sense, that creates a completely different experience when you're watching it, because it's sort of it's like the old man doing the kind of schizo rants, and then you have like the cooler lefty who's in with it, that's kind of just laughing at his antics, which it played to her favor. I was listening to some other Norwegian analysts who said that the audio version of this was a lot better for Trump, which, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure. I was listening to it the first time on my headset on the way to work, and I mean, you don't get this split screen effect, but still Trump is just not very grammatically fluid. And this has always been the case. He also always had a very simplified language. But in this debate, I thought he was choppier, if that made sense. He seemed to jump from one topic to another topic very quickly. And he would just mention certain topics that often required previous knowledge. Like say the post Endgame Marvel movies. where people are
Yeah.
complaining about them because like you have to have watched all the other Marvel movies to watch them. You can't get anything out of it.
Oh yeah, right. You have to start back at what's the first one? Like Iron Man in 2001.
Yeah, you have to
something.
watch Iron Man and Thor and all of those, and then you can understand what's going on with the newer Marvel movies. And like that would be one of the criticisms towards Trump in this debate, where I felt like a lot of the stuff that he was saying, he was just giving small nudges to things that only like very online MAGA people know about, or at least that they're read up on. For people who are coming into this a lot more fresh, they would not get these sort of nudges and points to things that are going on Twitter. It would just seem weird, I think, to a lot of people, and incoherent. I mean, it was incoherent, but it makes sense if you understand, if you're sort of pre-programmed to understand what is being talked about.
Yeah,
there.
for someone like us, I understand pretty much everything Trump's talking about, even the things he's like getting wrong, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Because I know what he's referring to or what he's misreferring to.
But if you're not constantly online reading up on this stuff, and you're like 12 years into Trump lore, then I think this could be very confusing. It would just appear completely incoherent to people, and it's like the problem then is like you get this kind of echo chamber effect, whereas the fans who are sort of in these kind of Twitter spaces, in these Twitter content funnels, they love this stuff because they feel like they're winning when they're getting him to talk about like their talking points. But the people who are undecided watching this, it'll probably be like watching the Power Rangers versus Ivan Ooh movie or something. It's for people who are really into it. It doesn't do much for the undecided voters. Okay, you can get the energizing effect, but that okay, yeah, I think I've said enough about that. So just a few more pointers about the format. They had a muted mic thing. It's almost like you have the radio call-in shows or the debate shows. So I mean, this becomes a bit more inconsistent during the debate, where they're trying to talk back and forth, and sometimes they're talking to each other without the mic on, that they can still hear each other talk, but you can't hear what they're saying. So like Trump was trying to be sassy in this debate and using the he was going to use the I'm talking" line, right? Because this is something that Kamala has said at a rally, right? When she had a fan that asked her a question or tried to heckle her when she was doing a speech, and she said something like, "Excuse me, I'm talking," and Trump was doing that as well. The problem is that Kamala's mic was muted when he was doing it, so if you're watching, you can't actually hear what she's saying, and so he's just it looks like he's just saying "Excuse me, I'm talking," just unprompted, which made him seem even more incoherent in that sense.
Yeah,
I don't know if you had that, if you picked up on that as well.
No, I'd agree. And muting him also, of course, prevents him from doing his own sort of, like, it literally stops his own reactions. Like Kamala could do the faces, but Trump apparently can't really do faces. He likes just sort of saying like wrong, right?
Yeah, he does, and he had a lot of weird facial expressions during the debate, but it was sort of more like he was
It was when he was
discomfort.
Speaking. Yeah.
Or he was reacting to stuff, but he was not liking it, and you could see he made sort of grimacing facial expressions, but he was not very happy. So yeah, it's a couple of more points. There was no live audience here, and I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, you could have had like a very small audience that was bipartisan, but yeah, for some reason they chose not to have any.
I mean, Trump feeds off of an audience in a way that Kamala, I think doesn't, or at least not at the same level, right?
So, at least he could sort of read the audiences. If he had only like MAGA people in the audience, that would have been to his advantage. If you had shit libs, I'm not exactly sure. So,
no, but even if he has bipartisan, Trump would naturally just have a better chemistry with his sort of alignment. People.
Yeah, I would assume that that this would have been in his favor at least. And I think the larger the audience, the more in his favor it would have been. And let's see, no audience. They do a sort of coin flip where Trump chose to go last. He gets to pick whether he goes first or he goes last. This was very much to his advantage. He was able to get the last word in on almost every point that they went through. Even when it wasn't prompted, he almost asked the moderators if he could just okay, can I get the last word in? Or can I speak? And he always got it. So I mean, there's a lot of talk about the 3 versus 1, and in a sense, that was correct because he was fact-checked disproportionately. Kamala made false statement as well. She was not fact-checked on him. He was fact-checked on specific things.
Yeah.
So people interpret that as they were against him. But I felt like they were also, in a sense, helping him by letting him have the last word. And also, if Trump had played ball with the moderators in terms of just answering questions, I think he would have done better. The commentators, in a sense, like there were many instances where Trump was getting defensive during this debate, and he was just wanting to answer questions about himself and sort of defend his own record and his own business history, his rallies and so on. And the commentators were trying to get him back on the issues, even when the issues were things like immigration, for example. That would be considered, I think, his strong suit in this debate. Certainly things on talking about immigration, which he tried to do many times. Also often unprompted, talking about inflation, which would have been, I think, a strong point for him. And then talking about Biden administration blunders like the Afghanistan withdrawal. That was his strongest points, but he could bring it onto those topics. But as a sort of general rule, he spent way too much time defending himself and then just sort of walked into this type of trap. So here's just some quick data points here. Total talking time. Trump talked for 42 minutes and 52 seconds. Kamala talked for 37 minutes and 36. It didn't seem like that. I almost felt like Kamala was talking more, but I mean, when you did the counting up, he actually spoke more. About 67 million people tuned in to watch this. I mean, this is just from a CNN article. So it seems like, Kamala Harris spent more time attacking Trump directly, whereas Trump was just talking more in general.
Yeah.
And I think now that we've gone through the meta stuff, we could start to look at, maybe like the first question. So the timestamp, I mean, you could just run it and we could see how they answer. And I'll provide some more commentary.
Sure, you're thinking about the better off question?
Yeah, I mean, we're very close to that on the timestamp anyway, so you could just run the clips. You have no sound.
Cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So
this is actually quite difficult to handle, because you're going to have to do like a politician's lie here, because there's no way you can, even though you can spin and look at the economy, right, to be like, oh yeah, inflation, this and that, you're not going to be able to like convince people that, yeah, well, but my milk and eggs have gone up like 150%. I don't know what you're talking about, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, this is a difficult question, I think, for incumbents, especially if you're going through, recessions, crises, especially like the times that we are now. It's just like a very bad question. Like Kamala's answer to this is that my impression is that she sort of practiced certain canned responses, right? She has like a deck of canned responses and a deck of attacks that she brings out, and she starts talking about
when she's like rummaging through the deck of canned responses.
and that's what she did this time. And I mean, there is a certain conspiracy going around that she received the questions beforehand, which I mean, it's not completely unheard of, because I think this happened once with the Hillary Clinton in 2016. But I would imagine that if she got the questions beforehand, she wouldn't be fumbling as much, because like I think this is the weakest answer from Kamala Harris, like the first answer, because she doesn't even have like a good answer to it. She just goes to talking about her own family background and like this is sort of like very general answer that you could give to almost any question. But let's hear it.
It's a politician's dodge, essentially.
I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you.
So yeah, we sort of called it before it happened. It's she's dodging the actual question and then just doing what she can to angle the attack. But she also throws in a bone to small businesses, which feels very. I see in your notes. You say it's old Republican.
Well, yeah, that is a lot of the Kamala Harris talking points. It's just appealing to the Never Trump Republican coalition, actually, and she mentions this many times as well, that they got a lot of like Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney and a lot of these what would be considered rhino Republicans, which are basically just old Republicans,
yeah,
who are now
also
endorsing her.
Also, I'm not sure if this is getting through on the stream, but when I'm listening to this, it's very sort of it's stereoed, right? And it's very shifting to the left headphone. So I'm getting all of this audio in like one ear. Very strange.
I can't. I'm not experiencing the same thing, but yeah, she sort of just had the standard answer, and this is probably as close as you're getting to actual policy discussions on most things here, where she talks about the child tax credit, $6,000, startup loans, there's startup money for small businesses, and I mean, what was the third thing?
The Gibbs are gonna flow. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like family tax credit, small business deductions. There's a third thing as well, where she talks about first-time home buyer assistance. And I mean, this is almost as deep as you're getting. There's certain points where we're getting to policy, but when you talk about like nitty-gritty economic policy, this is as like deep as you're getting on this debate. And now Trump is good. When she talks about the sales tax stuff, the way I understood it, it's actually talking about tariffs, which is something that Trump instituted during his term in office, which was a sort of tariff, I think, especially on Chinese goods. For those not in the know, I mean, tariff is it's basically a tax on import. And I mean, Trump always explains this as if like this, we're going to make China pay. And you might do that in a roundabout way by giving them less business, but China is not really paying anything. China is still selling to the US, and it's the people who are importing Chinese goods that have to pay a certain percentage of that price to the United States government.
Yeah, and then forward that to the customer, right?
This disincentive, either you're forwarding it to the customer or you're sort of disincentivized from buying these Chinese goods already. The problem, I think, is because the Chinese supply lines it's so ingrained already that it's hard to avoid.
I mean, it would be as a step, sort of as a part of a long-term coherent plan to wean the US off of reliance on China. I mean, it's a step, but as just like a one-time solution, it's not really going to do much when they're already this sort of bundled together with as you said, with the Chinese supply lines.
But Biden kept those tariffs, by the way, so that's the sort of thing he brings that up as well, as that Biden has maintained all of them, and
Nice.
Despite of what you're hearing, the anti-China line is actually quite bipartisan in the United States. So they didn't talk much. They don't talk much about China and Taiwan during this debate at all. But we can just hear Trump's response.
2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality.
Just pause it here. So, I mean, these are probably his most effective talking points. The problem is that it's very much coached in BS on so many levels, which, of course, I'm not trying to downplay immigration as a problem, but he's making a lot of claims here about like Venezuela is sending their criminals into the U.S. or something. Like a lot of them, I'm just wondering sort of where these talking points come from, because Trump has certain go-to talking points. He brings these up many times during the debates, like they're emptying their prisons and sending them to us, or they're taking over the towns, or like the Kamala wants to destroy Israel talking points. Like I wonder who is like coming up with them, because a lot of them they're either sort of based on hyperbole that's completely unnecessary, I think, to drive the point home, or it's sort of easy in a sense if you want to go the fact check debunker route to just kind of discredit.
What about the African Americans and the Hispanic?
The Haitians. That's okay. Now that we're on it, because I mean, this is in a sense, if I want to just round it back to why I think a lot of these right-wing influencers are so sad, because they have to kowtow to this 2024 Trump. That essentially in 2016, Trump was like, well, we have rapists at the border, like it's the bad hombres that are coming over and they're going to rape our women. And now in 2024, it's like we have to defend the Mexican rapists from the Haitian cannibals who are now coming in over the border, like defend the Mexican rapist heritage or something. Like, I have a tweet that I put out that was a sort of screenshot of, maybe I could link that. I hope it won't disrupt the flow too much. See if I can find it. That is a screenshot from his Truth Social. Let's see here.
All right.
It's always such a mess to keep track of the tweets. There's so many of them. I can post it in the private chat. You could bring it up for a minute.
Do you have the share here?
Yeah, it's in the private chat now.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. Just having it load in here on twitter.com. Sorry, it's X now. Actually, switching between sharing stuff is really annoying on StreamYard.
It's very annoying. So that's why it's better to have the PowerPoints, but sometimes that doesn't always work. So
Illegal migrants who are pouring into, I can't do the Trump voice, who are pouring into our country in record numbers are taking the jobs away from Black and Hispanic people who have held them for years. It is devastating for the Black and Hispanic patriots of our nation. Do you think, by the way, before I read on, do you think Trump did better with Blacks and Hispanics when he acted more white supremacist? Ironically.
Oh, no, actually, not in 2016. He did better in 2020 with that demographic, and that's when he was more Q-tard. So it seems like the more Q-tard,
Cool.
the more black men you get on board.
These jobs are not replaceable and never will be, because under Comrade Kamala Harris, why not just call her Comrade Kamala? The border will be wide open, and there will always be more people coming in, many of them terrorists and criminals, than jobs available. Kamala is killing Black and Hispanic heritage. She's killing their legacy and their rights. Register and vote for your all-time favorite president, me. November 5th will be the most important day in the history of our country. Make America great again.
So if you click to the right here, then I have basically the Amerinut meme. This is pretty. That's like the Trump 2024 platform. The JD Vance blood and soil, essentially. So yeah, thanks for like. But yeah, we could go back to the debate now.
Oh, I gotta retweet it like that.
Thank you.
Share screen again,
Let's see.
and we can go back to the debate.
Okay, so but yeah, this is he brings that, he has that standard talking points that you have. Okay, the all record high illegal migration, and all of these criminals are coming in and they're taking over Springfield, Ohio, and they're taking over Aurora, Colorado. Right, both of those are spurious narratives. I haven't done the deep research on Aurora, Colorado, but apparently there was some footage that was leaked of a Venezuelan gang that was coming in with guns into a building, and then it was alleged that they took over the building, but somebody said they weren't doing that. So it's both of these narratives are sort of conflicting, essentially, depending on who you ask and at what time of the news cycle you are in, where somebody's saying it's disinformation and then something else comes up where it's not disinformation. So I mean, it's a good thing to bring these things. These are should be very strong points for Trump, but there's just so much kind of hyper reality and bullshit injected into these narratives that, I mean, for me, this is a weak point. You should be able to provide, in a sense, just like an unequivocally bad story about immigrants.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that hard, right?
That's what I mean. Like if you live in the UK, you could talk about Rotherham scandal. If you live in Sweden, you could talk about like these youth crime gangs, like grenade launchers and this stuff. I mean, if you live in France, you could sit and talk about terror attacks.
I mean, we've covered sort of the honor crimes, right? Which is a feature that is entirely driven by immigration, right?
Exactly. So there should be enough to pick from here. But the problem is that if you're taking this position that Trump is taking here, where it's like we're doing like African American, Hispanic blood and soil nationalism, if you're taking the position that are African Americans a part of the American blood and soil, the in group, well, this is like the worst group. The kind of, what do you call it, the American blacks are in a sense like the lowest performing, highest crime group. So if you're saying that like this is the part of the in group, almost every immigrant group comes out better looking than them. Even the Haitians have like better employment numbers and lower crime numbers than the actual American, slave descendant blacks. So it's a very difficult position to argue, I think, for Trump, especially if this is the line that you're going with, that you're trying to appeal to, the patriotism of the black and Hispanic male rappers or whatever. But I mean, we get back to this point again. Maybe we should move over to abortion, because that's
Sure.
another interesting one. So you have the timestamp there. It's at 25:45. Yep.
And this is where things started going a bit off rail, I think, for Trump.
Well, the first question was the best question. It was the worst for Harris, and it was the best for Trump. But now you're coming to abortion, and I mean, for context, during Trump's presidency, he appointed 3 Supreme Court justices who were conservative, and they overturned the legal precedent that is called Roe v. Wade in the United States that sort of secures abortion up until fetal viability, which is interpreted as 6 months. So just to make it simple, it's basically abortion up to.
It is applicable on a federal level, meaning that the states
Yes.
can't override it.
Exactly. I mean, it is a flimsy legal decision if you look at the logic behind it. It's sort of grounded in privacy. And many people, these lefties think that, they should have created a federal law dealing with this instead of just having this precedent, but it was revoked by the sort of
that's how
majority.
the American legal system works these days. You get it through the Supreme Court, and then you don't have to do democracy, right?
So, but yeah, then it was revoked, and it goes back to the states. And some states maintain the 6 month limit, and other states had a full ban, or some states have like a more, a 6 week window for abortion. Say like Texas, for instance, that's a little bit more conservative. So you get abortion tourism from this, and it's apparently quite unpopular with women. They believe that the reason that the Republicans didn't win as much as they should during the midterms in 2022 was because of the unpopularity of overturning Roe v. Wade. So now Trump is put in, like, between a rock and a hard place, because he has a hardcore contingency in his coalition that want to have even more restrictive abortion laws. But at the same time, he knows that it's an unpopular topic, and he's being pressed on whether he would approve a veto an abortion ban. That's what he's going to be pushed on here. Like, if that comes from Congress, a total ban on abortion, would he veto that? In my view, the logical thing would just be to say, okay, I'm going with the states' rights, right? We're just going to keep it at state level. That's a sort of like libertarian, principled, conservative stance. But he can't commit to it. He can't commit to anything. So he's just flimsing around,
on it.
trying to, and nobody's happy with this. And this is a theme with this debate, is that it's many questions, whether it's on abortion or immigration.
And in that sense, Kamala has done a smart job just tactically in choosing, what's his name? Captain Abortion, because she can sort of offload. Yeah, she can sort of offload the hot potato, as it were, to him, while still sort of sending a clear message that, her administration is going to be very pro-abortion.
Okay, but let's listen to them.
Able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have the chat replay on, because someone says, does anyone want to play Minecraft?
And Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that
He's just full on rambling at this point.
Well, it only gets worse with this kind
I
of
know,
stuff.
but like this devolved so quickly. He was starting off well, and then it just goes south. And even he goes out swinging with the waltz thing, which isn't true at all, right?
No, the
But I know what
post
he's referring
yeah.
to. He's referring to a vote that Waltz pushed, which changed some sort of wording on a legal document about how much effort the medical personnel should put into resuscitating a fetus that had been born, right? So when an abortion went wrong, how much resources should the medical personnel put into trying to sort of keep the baby alive? And there's some wording that was changed that would make it sound that they were not going to do as much as they could. And that being said, none of the babies that were born that way survived anyway, as far as I could tell.
That's also my understanding, at least with the governor of Virginia. I don't think that was Tim Walz. He's from what is it, Minnesota?
Oh, sorry.
But so it's a bit of a mix-up there. But that was also my understanding of the 9-month stuff. But it's a very persistent meme, I guess, in certain like conservative circles. It's just like Cat Turd is cheering right with his hat when he's hearing the post-birth abortion meme stuff. Like they love this, but he's getting fact-checked on this by the moderators afterward, and I don't know if it helps. Again, if my advice, if it's worth anything, would be to just stick with the states' rights position. It's that I'm like pro freedom, pro states' rights, so that's what I'm going to stick to, and I just leave it up to them. That's the kind of principled stance. But he's going more on this kind of a lot of negativity in general. But this is not his weakest answer. At least it's you said it was rambly, but it's relatively unrambly compared to most of the other ones. But I think we heard this one. We won't be able to cover all of them, but I want to go to the next point, which is they're starting to they're asking basically about illegal border crossings and immigration, right? So they want to ask about the question that this is Trump's strong suit, but Kamala basically just moves on to insulting Trump and talking about how his rallies suck and nobody shows up to them. And then instead of actually talking about the immigration stuff that would have been his forte, he instead tries to defend himself, right? And it goes a lot, and he just starts
rambling. Can we jump ahead to that?
36, we should hear, because this is basically the people were talking about, well, there were no sort of critically bad moments in the debate. They were just not paying attention. For me, this was like the knockout moment in the debate, in a sense, like that just sent Trump spiraling, because after this, he just gets, you notice in his voice that he's visibly angry after this moment, where he's really going more onto just defending himself personally instead of talking about issues. And he's not attacking Kamala either. He could have been a lot more proactive in attacking Kamala, but he isn't. I don't know why. He seemed to have been very cautious about trying to say too much. I mean, some people said that he was, almost said the N-word a couple of times. But I think we should just watch this segment, because I think it's so instructive as to what happens later.
In the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris.
I mean, it's a bit of a bold move to try to get under his skin, but obviously it worked. But I can't get over, Witticism TV says it, she comes across as whiny and shrill. But I've always, like, whenever I hear her talk, I feel like she's a bit like shrill. So we were talking about her voice earlier, and I personally don't like it. Also, there might be, baby sounds. I apologize. There's some important diaper changing going on.
It's completely understandable. So, okay, now it's like kind of countdown to demolition point. And I want you to remember what I said previously about the reaction cam stuff. Because this is what you're getting when Trump starts answering here. It's sort of set up as like, okay, it's like we're watching a stream of Trump just babbling. And then you have like the Kamala live reaction on the right side here. So, yeah, just run the
Get all your reaction faces ready, guys.
Thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify.
So, I mean, yeah, we're not done tumbling down the stairs yet, but now he's gone through. First, he talks about like his rallies, and he talks about like her rallies are fake. If you remember that, he was posting like this sort of AI deepfake stuff, claiming that like her rallies are just kind of AI generated. So I thought he was referring to that when he talks about the light angle coming in a weird way, where it looks like there's more people at her rallies, claiming just it's like a full AstroTurf. And he talks about World War III at one point, and then he starts bringing in the immigration talking point that he was going to talk about, which, I mean, the moderator guy tried to bring him back to it. He sort of tried to, okay, would you like to address the point? And he sort of, that in a sense would have been instructive for Donald Trump if he just listened to the moderator, just talk about immigration and just answer the point. But instead he just goes off on, okay, my rallies are better than yours, and there's going to be World War III, and okay, we're going to have to drop the bomb on the the Ohio Springfield stuff, and he said like they're eating the dogs, which is, I thought that I'd misheard it, but you're seeing the reaction on the right side as well. The development of that story at the time was really was something that was spread among like Einmas Chong, Jack Posebic, and Charlie Kirk on Twitter, and sort of distributed by a lot of these Maga networks with these AI images, and the narrative was that the Haitians are eating the cats. They're eating the cats and the ducks, in a sense, and they were making cats and ducks images. So when he said this, I was like, what the hell is going on? Like he can't even remember the fake narrative that they made up. Even that's something he's sort of floundering on. But like we're not finished yet, because now he gets fact checked, and then he sort of just stands there pouting while she's laughing at him, and then coming with some more commentary. So I'll just roll it a little bit more.
Sure.
Clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
The people are
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. This is,
So
I
if
think,
you
one
stop
of
it
the reasons
here,
why.
like he's sort of just sitting there pouting now after this exchange, and I'm just going to send you a photo in the private chat to kind of explain like what I thought about the format here. I don't know if people are old enough to remember the sort of Spurdo Sparde, the American bear meme that came out of Finland, like where they have these the American bear. That is a sort of play on the 4chan international board, where they're doing these kind of jokes as to how these countries relate to each other. Are you getting the link up?
Let's see here. Yeah, I'm working on it. It's just taking a moment.
Yeah, Twitter is slow these days.
It is. I think they're trying to save on server costs. Let's see here.
They lost so much revenue from
Brazil.
From Brazil, yeah. I mean, this, in a sense, this is what was achieved by Kamala's debate strategy. If you put like a split between these two, is that you have like the American nutbag that's on the left there, sitting and rambling about like 12-year-olds should have automatic weapons or something, or the immigrants are eating all the dogs in Springfield. I saw it on the television, while you're having Kamala doing the global poker face on the right, and doing this kind of deeply concerned type, like all of these sort of facial expressions that I've seen from these typical memes, like when the American Tea Party guy comes out and says outrageous stuff, and there's like having these trying to hold back laughter, or just kind of, okay, this guy's totally not serious in here. And then like that's essentially what was recreated here in that debate, and why it's just like from this moment on, it's just kind of stumbling into more and more of this stuff where he just gets more upset and starts making mistakes in just trying to defend himself, and she just has these reactions to what he's saying. So now she just goes into talking about all her endorsements and doing more attacks. So I'm just going to go back to the notes to see. I mean, we've been going for over an hour already, so we need to be better on time. I was going to have like this large presentation about like going into the entire chain of events that led to the Springfield stuff, but we might have to do that next time.
Maybe,
so, yeah. So the next question, they ask him about the deportation plan, right? And so he goes back to the same narrative, is that they're bringing in the criminals from Venezuela across the border. But the weak point here is that Trump never actually answers how he's supposed to deport people, and this is just a general weak point that I think he has. And I don't know if it's an age thing. I was talking about this when he was doing the Lex Friedman interview as well, that whenever he's asked about, going into detail on any kind of policy, whether it's the foreign policy on Ukraine, whether it's Medicare, whether it's the deportation, he can never give details on anything. So if you go to maybe a 4119, you could just hear the beginning of the answer where he's asked specifically about explaining the deportation and the mechanics of it, and it just kind of goes back to the
Before we
same.
go on, I'd just like to say, because Cyber Ninja Zero says it wasn't created by Maga, it was said in a Springfield, Ohio City Council meeting. From what I was able to dig up earlier, was that it originated just from like a neighborhood watch Facebook group. It was someone who, like, a friend of a friend reported that someone's cats got eaten, and but if you have other sources on it, I mean, go ahead. Right.
Yeah, there's many angles that you could go to. There was a Facebook group where the person was talking about cats being taken, and then the newspaper interviewed that person, and she said that she hadn't actually personally seen it. You had like the city council people are sitting and complaining about various things, and you have the Einmal's Chong video, right, where he posted a video of a woman that had apparently eaten a cat who was high on methamphetamine, and she was black. And he claimed that she was Haitian, but apparently it's just like a regular African American in a sense, which is, again, I come back to the same problem, is that if you're going to have like regular African Americans on the in-group, and they always end up behaving worse.
You just have to point the camera at them. You don't have to make a narrative about it. They're doing it on their own, right?
And that's the thing. A lot of the quote unquote evidence that was put out of the cat eating stuff, it's just African Americans doing African American stuff that they claimed were Haitians. So yeah, I mean, if we're going to get through the debate, I can't do both. It'll have to be one stream of doing like the Springfield archaeology, and then maybe that'll be next time. So the deportation is at 4119.
John McCain, and the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution.
We gotta keep going. We're not at the deportation yet. Maybe I think maybe my timestamp was wrong, because we're not at that question yet.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe you could just keep pushing forward until we get there.
Well, we have deportation.
His former, another Trump term.
Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah.
Is this what you want to talk about?
Yes. Perfect.
Yeah.
It is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And
that's true. We do have a state sort of program where we send all of our criminals to the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, he's going back. I'm noticing just now, I mean, I've listened to the debate a couple of times, how many times he goes back to this same talking point during the debate.
Well, I mean, it is a good one.
Yeah.
When he delivers it well. So, yeah.
I mean, he does it because it works, but I think people were more interested in hearing about the little bit more meat and potatoes about deportations, exactly how that's going to work.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like the question that the guy asks, I'm going to make sure he's pretty much done, right?
And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it. Because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. Crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump had...
All right. So the question that he got was about specifically deportation. And the guy who asked it, I forget his name, the moderator, did ask it in a bit of a slimy way, because the way he asks it makes it sound like Trump is going to have, the jackboots walking down the street kicking people out of their homes and taking them out back or just sending them home. Very sort of fascist stuff that he's alluding to. And instead of actually addressing that, because Trump can't really address that because half of his voting base is like immigrants now, right? Technically. He
Yeah, I
just
see your point.
rambles more on the border thing, which isn't wrong, right? He's not wrong about the border being an issue. It's just that he's grandpa's still here rambling about the thing we talked about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, again, he goes back to the rambly bit. So after this, he gets the fact check again on the
and it's annoying
crime.
because it sounds like we're sort of like, oh, Trump is the worst, because he has great moments in this. He has the line about he has a line about he says something like, oh, that's my policy, I should send her a Maga hat or something like that, which is like a classic great Trump bit, right? But there's fewer and fewer sort of there's more and more time between these moments than there were in both 2016 and 2020.
Yeah, a lot less of the singers and more padded the rambling that's going on. So just to continue what's going to happen, he gets a fact check on the crime rate stuff. And then Kamala Harris brings up his court cases. And then just was a bit saying that, it's not related to the borders. He basically says, well, you're complaining about crime, but you're actually the criminal, which then again makes him defend himself again and talk about, well, they're attacking me and blah, 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 which is, of course, you could say that, but it's not a strong debate talking point in a sense to talk about how everybody's weaponizing the system against me. So the next one they go into is fracking. It's probably, sorry, my voice is cracking here. I've been sick this week. I just need a little bit of hot chocolate.
Sure. I mean, you're doing a lot of the talking this episode anyway, so it's understandable.
And because Kamala has taken so many of these what I consider old Republican positions, like we're going to frack more, and a lot of these positions, she tries to explain, go to these canned talking points about how my values haven't changed, but my policies have changed, and then she goes back to attacking Trump again on he got money from his dad, and everybody can't get that money, so we need to help people who are home buyers. And then Trump goes on the defense again, right? Where Trump is like, oh well, I made a lot of money and it wasn't easy for me, and then he tries to do that, well, I'm talking now defense, right? That I mentioned previously. That was supposed to be just mimicking what Kamala said previously, but because we can't actually hear what Kamala is saying, it sounds more rambly again, because you're not really hearing that she's interrupting him. You could see it if you're lip reading, but it just sounds incoherent. And then he goes to that other, like this classic line on, she wants to make what is it? She wants to make illegal aliens have transgender surgeries in prison or whatever, and it sort of points to it's one of these like pointers, if you know enough about politics, that Kamala Harris has advocated for, like this making this gender care stuff available to people in prison in California, including people who are in prison who are illegal immigrants, in a sense. It has not been a part of the campaign or sort of campaign position, but it's something that she has advocated for in the past. So, but the way that he presents it just makes it sound kooky, in a sense, to people who like this is just something he's making up in the way that he's presenting it, and especially because it's coming out of nowhere. It's not really related to any topics, and that's something else, because like the trans and the gay stuff never comes up in this debate. If you want to talk about like the woke being put back, there's no dedicated sessions on gay rights or trans rights or anything like this, which is something I think it's quite important to note. They do a race bit later when they start asking, what are you going to do for the black population? But a lot of the gay trans stuff is kind of not even brought up. You're getting this problem now that it's really like the anti-woke people who keep bringing in the tranny stuff, and not so much the woke liberals, who seem to have just quietly agreed on hushing it down.
Yeah.
So
Before we go on here, we have someone in the chat asking about our upcoming live event. So I figured I should quickly shill that for anyone in Norway and anyone in the northern part of Norway. Next week, we won't be doing the Longhouse because we will be at this. Is it next week? It's probably next week. Yeah, we will be at this event. And for those of you who speak Norwegian, this poster is for you. For anyone else, I'm sorry. You'll just have to endure for a moment. But if you are part of the or know of the Students Society, the Conservative Students Society in Tromsø, you can get in touch with them or look at their Facebook pages, and you can watch us live to talk about democracy and demographics.
So this looks like a black metal poster, actually.
It does, pretty based.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, maybe we could go to the timestamp of like 54, where he's asked about January the 6th.
Yes, let's do that.
Let's see if the timestamp is correct. We could just hear a part of his answer.
Cornerstone of our democracy and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, "Oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet." That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? What are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David. All over the world, and crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David? When are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle, they went into Seattle, they took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask you.
So again, that's a sort of missed opportunity here to pivot into something else. We didn't get the whole speech here. He basically says that he says I had nothing to do with it. This is something he says later. Like, is there any? Yeah, let's just see if he says it. I think he'll say it in the next 30 seconds.
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes,
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers.
I just said it on pause again, right? So I don't know, because I'm not inside of the mind of like the hardcore Maga base. I just can't imagine this being an answer that they wanted. But I mean, in the beginning, he sort of just pivots away and starts talking about immigration again. And then he's asked, he sort of pressed on it. And he says, basically, I had nothing to do with it. And it was Nancy Pelosi's fault. I've seen people circulating a clip where Nancy Pelosi is sitting inside a car and she's saying that it's like my fault, which he's talking about she should have brought more security or something. But I remember 2020 quite well, and I was watching Nick Fuentes, I was watching Steven Crowder, I was on the Patriots.win, paying attention to it. That's the previous R. Donald, right? The Donald Reddit that was removed, and they moved it onto another site. and claiming that he had nothing to do with it. He just showed up to do a speech. It's like, I don't know if I was one of these like MAGA people, if that's something that they're just, okay, we're just going along with that now. He had nothing to do with it, or if they actually feel betrayed in a sense, because he could have made this, the talk about patriotism or something, or this, because that was something he said, I think, in the aftermath of January the 6th, is that, these people love their country so much and they got a little bit too eager, when the people started rioting and running into the Capitol. They said that, they love their country so much that, they got, very emotionally charged when all of this injustice was happening. But he's gone away from that now and is basically saying that I had nothing to do with this. But I mean, he was the reason they were there, pretty much. The messaging from him was pretty clear that he wanted them to show up and protest on that day. So it's a sort of like, who is happy with this answer? This could have been turned. He could have, turned it into something that was positive. But to me, it just seems like a completely missed opportunity to flip this or to spin this in a way that looks better for him. Where it's sort of like this kind of defensive thing, where it's like, no, I don't want to talk about it, and I had nothing to do with that. It was everybody else's fault. Let's not talk about this. So in response, Kamala Harris talks about like her experience being there. And then she goes back to these kind of Charlottesville talking points with like, Richard Spencer came out with tiki torches and veiny biceps and fine people on both sides. It's like these standard Democrat talking points that, it's been debunked many times. It's sort of misrepresenting a lot of the stuff that Trump said. But she uses that, and she uses the bloodbath stuff, which is sort of a also kind of misrepresentation of the Trump, or something Trump said about the economy. But again, Trump had the opportunity to kind of spin this into something that would be a little bit better for him. But it's kind of just, I don't want to talk about this. It's I don't know if you had any opinions on this, because I felt like, I would have had like blue balls if I was still in one of these hardcore MAGA. I still was one of these hardcore MAGA types.
I mean, if I still was that hardcore now in 2024, and Trump said, yeah, I mean, if Nancy would have allowed me, I would have put, a bunch of National Guard there to shoot me. I wouldn't be too thrilled about that.
So I don't know how long their memory is. That's what I suspect, is that they don't remember that much from 4 years ago. And if he presents a new narrative, then that's just what they believe in. I mean, it might sound cynical, but I think that that's where most of them are.
I don't know. Yeah,
honestly, I can see them just repeating that.
Yeah, I mean, 2020 coulda, woulda, shoulda, too many been the Caesarean Trump moment, and it wasn't. So, then what are you clinging on to? I mean, I'm writing a lot about political myth, as Sorrell called it, in my speech that I'm doing next week, or presentation that I'm doing next week, and what is the direction, the force, the myth, the energy of Trump now in 2024? I mean, it was there in 2020 and it didn't go anywhere. Maybe I'm not feeling it because I'm not American. I don't know.
Yeah, same. So the next question he gets into is that if he was cross-referenced about the interview he did with Lex Friedman that we talked about on the previous stream, and it's that lost by a whisker statement where he asked Trump if he still believes that he won or he lost, where Trump says that he still believes that he won and that there's evidence that he won, but he doesn't want to go into it. And then he goes back to talking about immigration. Then Kamala Harris makes a lot of attack lines. He said, well, you were fired by 81 million people. He said the world leaders laugh at you. You have a bad temperament, which is sort of arcing back to the Hillary Clinton line. And then Trump starts talking about Orban and Nord Stream. So, which is, I'm also not sure, outside of like his inner clique of internet people, who is, who exactly is the Orban stuff for? How many of the MAGA people knows who Orban is? I know that Orban has talked to him. Orban has been on Tucker Carlson. But again, I'm just not so sure. Orban is quite divisive, right? And you can talk about, he said that he was like a very respected leader, but generally he's actually quite hated. He's in a very sort of weird position where he's in the EU, but he's like, his whole job in the EU is just to be an obstructionist on behalf of Russia and China. So everybody in Europe hates him and just wants him to leave. But he's still able to sort of, I guess, reach a certain audience. I'm getting like based Hungary propaganda on my Twitter timeline constantly. So maybe it has a larger reach than I think. But yeah, I'm not sure. After that, they go into the Israel-Hamas stuff where Kamala does the standard, like she repeats the standard Democratic Party line, right? Which is that they want a two-state, they support Israel, they support Israel's right to defend itself, but they eventually they hope to nudge it towards a two-state solution, right? I mean, this is not realistic, but yeah, they're going to support Israel no matter what, but they will be complaining along the way.
Yeah,
that's kind of the Democrat line.
Yeah.
Then Trump goes into that. This is the line he keeps repeating, that Kamala Harris hates Israel, and Israel will cease to exist within 2 years if Kamala Harris is elected. And again, it's like this is a standard line that he has, and I'm just not sure who is this for exactly, because
it's for all the swing state Jews like that.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't looked at the Jewish polling for
Like
2024.
It has to be no one at this point, right?
And I mean, I know that
either you're like a coastal elite Jews type person, right? In which you already vote Democrat and are pro-abortion and all that stuff, right? Or you're high-end Jewish elite, in which case you're already donating money to the super PACs, right? That fund Trump. So like, who is this line for?
Yeah, I mean, it seems on the voting level, the Jews still vote majority Democrat, even though you have like this hardcore constituents of conservative Jews, the Likud types from Israel who really like Trump. But they seem content with Democrats the way that it is. So he keeps running this kind of, I'm feeling like it's backfiring, because there is an increasing amount of people who have taken on this kind of anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic attitude, where it's a lot more open now on social media, especially on Elon Musk's X.
Sort of run it under the Palestine banner, and then
I mean, this kind of what I call pogrom populism, in a sense, this kind of Dan Bilzerian, Jake Shields anti-Semitism. It seems to, they're not able to contain it anymore, so they're just kind of serving the dumbest possible version of it to the masses. And for those people, if they hear that, okay, if you vote for Kamala Harris, then Israel is going to be destroyed in 2 years, I think that might actually throw a couple of votes her way. It's I just don't think it's a very good strategy. It's the Republican Israel stuff has always been completely confusing for me. Let's see. Then Trump goes on about Iran. He talks a lot about Iran and Russia and how these countries are being rich and poor, and how like Iran is becoming a lot richer under Biden, which still I didn't look into. I'm not sure how that even works. If it's because of the interest rates or something, or some type of trade deal. But seems to be almost kind of obsessed with this. He wants to change interest rates and energy prices so that the dollar will be stronger against the ruble, or
threatening his base.
Yeah.
I think that's in reference to what about with the Jews.
So then Kamala attacks him on, that he's cozy with Kim Jong-un, he's cozy with Xi Jinping and Putin. And Kamala just brings up this kind of entire washing list of every military leader in the US who hates Trump.
Yeah.
So then they have the go to break. Trump also brings up Ukraine unprompted, by the way. When he's asked about Israel, he starts talking about Ukraine instantly. It was quite confusing because he wasn't even asked about it. So they go to break, and then he's asked about Ukraine. And then the moderators ask him if he wants Ukraine to win, and then he can't really give an answer to it. And then they ask him, okay, just a yes or no question. He still doesn't want to answer. So it's sort of if you're going to lie anyway, I mean, my view is that if you're just going to make shit up anyway, why don't you just say yes and just get the moderators off your back on this point instead of like laboring laboring that you're not really sure about exactly what you're going to do about Ukraine, or I mean, it's the same thing with the Lex Friedman interview. It's sort of like he alludes to the idea that he has a foreign policy, but there's really nothing there. But if you're cross referencing what JD Vance says with what he's implying, then it's basically a sort of capitulation in a sense to. It's going back to the Russian peace offering that they withdrew after the invasion of Kursk, but that's what they seem to be going for. The peace offer that Russia had on the table, and just getting Zelensky to accept it. So then they go back and forth about negotiation, who's better at negotiating. I mean, it does sort of go to Trump's favor when he says that he's a good negotiator, even though I'm not particularly impressed by it and what I've seen. But I think there's enough of his base that if he talks about, I'm good at negotiating and I can hire and fire people and I'm a confident business leader, he sounds like he believes in himself when he says that, and he projects confidence outwards. So
yeah,
it's a much stronger point for him to talk about rather than the defensive stuff. After that, we get to the Afghan withdrawal, where Kamala has to sort of defend that blunder, in a sense, which is and this is a strong point for Trump, where he started to talk about what he was going to do with Afghanistan and the deal that he made to withdraw from it, which he actually has like a very funny moment.
Yeah, the
Abdul stuff
or whatever.
Yeah, that's actually really funny. That was sort of back to, maybe we should listen
classic,
to it.
Classic Trump. Yeah,
118 timestamp.
Let's see.
No, sorry, it's 128. Sorry.
And get this. And honor former president because he to me must do around
Taliban.
Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left 85 billion.
See, it's funny. Do you want me to talk? Let him talk.
Yeah, I mean, he says they left $85 billion of equipment, which is the official number is $7 billion, right? So I'm not really sure about the point of exaggerating this if you risk being fact checked, in a sense. Maybe there's some strategic
other numbers as well, like
some strategic reason for this. But Trump often refers to I have the real stats, but he never explains where that comes from. Like with Ukraine, he has that point as well. The
Cyber Ninja Zero says Abdul has not discovered moving to another house technology. Well, I mean that's way further up on like the civilization tech tree, right?
His family has lived there for generations. It's not going to change.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Ukraine, he said that the numbers are worse than you say they are. But the moderators never mentioned any casualty numbers. He just sort of brings that up. It's like the numbers are worse than you say. I have the real numbers. It's the same with the illegal immigration and with
I thought
like
he was,
with the military
he was referring
stuff.
to like you as like the ABC, like the news people.
Oh yeah, maybe. I think people just project into that statement because if they're reading some kind of alternative news, then I mean, let's see if you're watching like Judge Knapp or something, like they will have a much higher estimate of how many Ukrainians are dying than say the official Ukrainian intelligence or something. So I imagine that people are projecting that onto him when he's saying that I've seen the real numbers. They think that he's watching the same alternative news sources that I am watching, and we're kind of we're tight like that. That's just my guess on how that works but it doesn't necessarily mean that. I'm not sure if he's even watching that stuff himself.
You both follow Ian Miles Chung just for different reasons.
Yeah, exactly. So after that, he gets into the black identity stuff, which is also just a kind of bummer for him. Maybe you could go to the 134 timestamp, because he's asked about that. Why you speculating on Kamala's
we're gonna have
black
to wrap
identity
it up soon. So
yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, that's not that far. It's just a few more points.
They pled guilty. Then they admitted. They said they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a
Oh,
person.
sorry, we got in way too far here.
Oh.
And division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President.
Do you want Harris's statement?
No, maybe just Trump's statement if he's asked that question about the black identity.
And Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency.
Yeah, I think we're missing. I think I got the
There's
wrong
never been anything like-
wrong timestamp. If you just pause it again, but I'll just summarize what he said.
Sure.
He was asked about, okay, why do you think it's okay to speculate on her identity? And he doesn't even give an answer. He's just like, yeah, she can be whatever she wants. She can, I don't care. You know, it's like it's a very this kind of defensive answer, in a sense. He could have done so much more with that statement, or talked about how much he loves black heritage or something. I mean, we saw the tweets, right? That's what he's talking about, how much Maga is pro-black and Hispanic heritage. But he completely missed the opportunity to pander to black people. There's like they set off like one question. Now you can just
could literally say, I don't want to speculate on identity. My movement is built up of a lot of Hispanics and Americans, and we love them, right?
Yeah, I have the most Hispanics. I have the best blacks, and it would have been very easy for him to, if he was in good shape, to just go down that road and
I
pander.
shook hands with all the blacks.
Yeah, but he didn't. He just had this very kind of defensive. Oh well, yeah, whatever. You can just say whatever you want, and then Kamala Harris brings up his record of like denying black people housing and this a lot of that stuff, and then he has to defend himself again. So it's a bad look. Then they go into Obamacare, which is even worse, because then Trump has to explain why he hasn't repealed it, even though he has run on repealing Obamacare, and then explain that he had to save Obamacare. And so they go back and forth on that. There's another very weak answer. Then he gets to climate change, where he just talks about manufacturing jobs. He doesn't even answer the question. So we just have like it's just one topic after another where he's just giving really weak answers. And Kamala is never missing the opportunity to attack him.
That Kamala as well, when she's not attacking Trump, she's essentially giving a lot of weak answers too.
Yeah,
or
she has
very sort of like standard canned responses, sort of
yes.
pre-rehearsed stuff, right?
It is just a canned pre-rehearsed, just like the deck of pre-rehearsed responses that she's taking from, which is the reason I don't believe she got the questions in advance, because she would have had better answers to a lot of them. I mean, it remains to be seen what comes of that affidavit, but I mean, yeah, her answers were just sort of pre-rehearsed things that you could just slot into these different topics as they
like when
came
asked
up.
About Obamacare, mentioned the insulin stuff, right? It's it's very like if then else statements.
but at least it shows some preparedness, right? But with Trump, it's just sort of he gets defensive, and he just gives these kind of like rambly half-close answers, and he doesn't really use the opportunity to try to promote his own ideas at all. So then they get to closing statements, which is sort of, I mean, if you're watching conservative media, they're going to show you like his closing statements, because they felt like that was the strongest part, where he said, like, why haven't you done more or something? Which, I mean, okay, yeah, I guess it's better, but if that's like the best thing you have from Trump, it's not very convincing. My opinion is really essentially the same as you got with the post with the post-debate polls on CNN, that he lost, and I think he lost badly in this debate. But if you go into like some of these conservative spheres on Twitter, it's like these mountains and mountains of cope after this stuff with like why Trump won. Actually, it's like Trump won, but it was 3 against 1, and Kamala Harris had a microphone in her earring. That was a conspiracy. Like, so she was getting having someone talking into her ear, and she was given the questions in advance, and she was like BFFs with the moderators she had gone to school with, and like they have this sort of list of excuses for why Trump didn't win.
For why Trump won, you mean?
Then Trump was bullied by the moderators,
No,
but he still
the list
won
of
anyway.
excuses for why Trump won.
Yeah, and of course, Trump won, but he should do another debate so he could really show how good he is. But then Trump came out and said that no, he's not going to do another debate because he believes he won this debate. So he wants to deny Kamala Harris the second chance, which is sort of, I mean, yeah, the cope narrative, the latest cope narrative is that because the Haitians eating cats narrative has stuck, that means it worked. Essentially, he won the debate because he had the only memorable line. But if you look at the actual post-debate polling, not just the polling on how the debate performance was, but how the aggregate polling has changed. Let's see. I mean, you could look at say 538 or say 270 to win. I'll just link this one, and we could finish up with that. So then you can see how a lot of these swing states are doing.
Sorry,
and,
where?
I put it in the private chat here.
Oh,
you
sorry.
Could bring that up.
Yeah.
I mean, she's basically gone ahead both in aggregate polling with general approval ratings, and she's looking to, like, she's edging out Trump in a lot of these swing states.
I mean, we should, as always, be careful with trusting polls, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, you can trust the polls as you want, but if you're going to measure by anything after the debate, Kamala has been running away from Trump in the polls. That's just what's been happening. And you could sort of sit and argue that, well, if you look at Google Trends, then you could see like a spike in people searching for cat eating in Springfield, Ohio. But if you look at like the actual changes in the polls,
people to search to Google cat eating in Ohio, but did he gain votes?
The problem is that you can Google it, but you're just going to get a bunch of articles saying it's fake. That's what I do. At least I don't know what results you're getting.
No, that's true. But I mean, and then you can have an argument about whether or not you should trust Google. But that's still what's happening to quote unquote the people, right? That's the reality that they're seeing. They're Googling the cats. They're getting the message it's fake, and they're thinking, oh wow, well why did he ramble about that for so long then, right?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not sure if the cat meme is like it's they are holding on to it because they're laughing at Trump, or they're holding on to it because they're actually interested in learning about the consequences of illegal immigration into smaller Rust Belt states. But yeah, here we have all the pie charts. So it's you can order it by competitiveness, for example. Like you have this box, these check boxes. And you're seeing that even in North Carolina, Harris has like a 0.2 lead, this is typically a red state.
Yeah.
Right. So there's even some of these typical
right
red
now
states that have been.
It's Trump ahead by only 0.8.
In North Carolina?
Yeah.
Are we looking at the same? Oh, wait, maybe I need to refresh it.
Maybe maybe you have old numbers.
Refreshing, and let's take a look.
I mean, if your
point he is ahead now. I was actually sitting on an old one, so these things need to be changing by the day.
It's closer than it should be. Then I mean, you're right. Then
earlier today she was ahead in the North Carolina polls.
Okay, so it's very close at least.
So it shouldn't be this close in North Carolina and in a lot of these other states. And of course, I can't really guarantee any outcomes here. My view is basically that the mainstream take on this, which was she did better in the debate, and because of that, she's more likely to win after that debate than before the debate. And the people who are serving up this kind of slop about like these 1,000 reasons why Trump did better are essentially just feeding into the cope industry, which is a very big one, by the way. I mean, maybe I'll just do that next stream, a sort of cope retrospective.
And we'll see if sort of the Harris campaign can keep this stuff up, right? Because I would argue that any wins they've had this far is the Trump campaign kind of shooting themselves in the foot.
Trump wants to lose. That's honestly my view on this. Like, Trump 2024 doesn't even want to win.
Oh, really?
There's just so much weird behavior going on. Like, there's a lot of people who want him to win now. So it's different from before, where it's I think that the MAGA heads want him to win, I think Peter Thiel and a lot of that Palantir network wanted to win. There's a lot of larger forces in the United States and internationally that want him to win, but I don't think he wants it. And just based on the amount of kind of weird behavior that is coming from his camp, say campaigning in New York, for example, that he's been doing recently. He's been doing these crypto events and shilling these sort of crypto coins. Even the campaigning in Springfield, Ohio on the cat-eating Haitian stuff is weird because Ohio is a sort of sure state for Trump. It's not really a competitive state at all. So I don't know, he seems to be putting a lot of energy into states that are not going to flip either way. It's just a lot of strange behavior, like him or JD Vance. They just seem to have completely different schedules and going to different places and saying different things. I don't even know. They seem to be completely out of sync with each other. So there's just a lot of weird things that seems to be happening, where I'm just picking up on the fact that I don't think Trump wants it that badly.
Huh. That's an interesting take. I'm still a bit on the fence. I know that, is it AA who has the Harris is a jobber thing? But the thing is, that only works if your opponent is competent. So I see where you're coming from. It's certainly a weird election. I mean, the 2020 felt more like a fight, like a head-on-head fight than this does. This just feels like this is literally the sort of two retards fighting meme.
Yes, I mean, if Trump wins, then AA was correct, right? Because the analysis is basically that Trump is more popular than the Pope, and because of that, that's just going to carry him to victory, because Kamala Harris doesn't have that star power, and that just means Trump wins independently of what he does, which, in my analysis, is that Trump is doing things to lose, but he's still winning anyway because he's just that popular. So yeah, if Trump wins, then AA was correct.
Yeah, he might be much more popular on the ground in America, and he probably is, right? So you have to color everything with the fact that we're across the pond, right? And we're just seeing things from here, and trying to do sort of the in a vacuum meta-analysis. I think that's enough for today. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you for listening. Again, I'd like to remind you that if you are in the northern part of Norway, we will be doing an event there, or appearing at an event there next week. So there will be no Longhouse then, but you'll be able to watch us live, and please come check that out if you are available. Bloody Path, anything else you want to say?
No, I think we've been going for long enough. So thanks for everyone's time, and well, we won't see you next week, but maybe after that.
Week after that, yeah. All right, bye bye.